Fena mutwegatteko tukyuse Uganda tusobole ogyeyagaliramu kuba ne bw'oba oyogera olulimi lwe lumu nabo tekigenda kutaasa bwe baba baagala ekikyo ne baba baagala kitwala mu butali bwenkanya. So tusitukire wamu baganda bange twerwaneko tukyuse ensi yaffe tusobole okweyagalira mu nsi yaffe ffenna, no matter the tribe, no matter the language.
Okay, this is The Verdict, and my name is Ashraf Kaside. We are so glad hosting you, Honorable George Musisi.
Pleasure to be here, Ashraf. Good to see you after a long time, and glad to see that you're alive and healthy.
That is so great. And thanks for everything. You know, you're one of the fighters in NUP who makes sure we have our lives, even if we are in the war. I call it a war that, although people don't think that you can be in a war without being on the ground with guns, but I know people are really fighting. That's why people are in prisons, and that's why people
Some are
like
dead.
me have wounds,
Some
people
are
are dead, people have been abducted, and you're on the
True.
forefront of saving these people. We thank you for that.
Pleasure. God's grace.
Yes, Counsel, let us start right away. You are one of the members on the legal team in NUP. Can you briefly take us through the kind of work you keep doing now, especially since 2017 when People Power became NUP, and all the things you've been doing to see that people's lives are saved from this kind of tyranny?
Ashraf, like you rightly mentioned, since the People Power movement started, we've been having problems. You know, one of the rights which is stifled most in Uganda is the right to freedom of association and assembly, the right to freedom of expression. And when the People Power movement started being a strong force politically, of course it faced the full wrath of the state. I remember one of the first cases we did with under the People Power movement was when President Chagulanyi went for the OTT protest against the OTT tax. If you remember that picture which had Joel Senyonyi, APAS, Raymond Mujuni, and some people were arrested.
Including Chairman Nyanzi, the
Chairman
president
Nyanzi was
himself,
arrested,
and many others.
Eddie Mutwe,
Eddie Mutwe.
Julius Katongole, and Selector Devi. Those people were arrested. Yes. So that was, I think, the very first case we handled. I remember myself and Counsel Katana were at CPS from 3 p.m. till midnight because they were being told that, you know, they are going to be given bond, please wait, they are going to be given bond, and eventually they were never given bond. So we left at midnight. Actually, Counsel Katana's car, which he had parked right in front of CPS, was vandalized. By the time we got to the car, it had been vandalized. So since then it became a roller coaster. Of course, along the case where Medi, the court case where Medi was on, Nalukola was on and off. I remember there were a number of lawyers. Shamim was. So of course then it became a roller coaster. Then I remember one time the president was having consultations before he became a candidate, when he was just having his aspirations. He was arrested in Kasangati, driven to Nagalama. And of course, when it became NUP, the cases continued because the force became bigger and then the violence also became more. Then, of course, I remember at one point there was that major case which involved the lifeline of the party. That's the famous Chibalama case, which the famous Chibalama case. I remember it also gave us a number of sleepless nights. And then, when the elections happened and the campaigns after November 2020, I think November 2020 was the turning point in terms of abductions, because the abductions intensified, the torture intensified, the arbitrary arrests intensified. And of course, even the missing persons, who are still demanding, the 18 missing persons. Most of the 18, apart from one, were all abducted after the November riots. I think it's only Shibalama was abducted earlier. So when we went into elections and after elections, it became because that's when even the military trials intensified. From election time up to till now, a number of people were arrested. I remember that year alone, between 20 shortly before the elections, hundreds of youths were incarcerated and sent on remand by the court martial. Hundreds. We're talking about over 500 people. And people just kept on talking about Eddie Mutwa Nubian when they think that, but actually there was hundreds of people from all sorts of frivolous issues, the t-shirt, a beret. I remember one day myself...
And from all places of the country.
And from all places of the country. I remember one day myself and Honorable Shami Malende were at the division court martial in Bombo, and after elections, and about 200 youths were bailed out on one day. About 200 had been on detention. Not even the general court martial, the division court martial. So, of course, as we all know, the court martial trials took a lot of our time, and then the abductions. The court martials, of course, the most famous one was the Kalangala 48. Remember when they arrested the campaign team in Kalangala?
Just a moment. I wish I could remember, but I was in a coma that time.
Yes,
because of the same stuff.
You couldn't. I remember when they arrested them on 30th December 2020. The following day, I was at Masaka Police, 31st December 2020. I remember meeting Derek Wandela outside there. He had just survived there. He was arrested and then released somehow. So we were outside police. So I remember I was refused to talk to them. I begged the officer that, can I please talk to one? They refused. After a lot of ping pong, that was curfew time. So after a lot of ping pong, around 5, I had to drive back to Kampala. Then the following day, which was a Saturday, I remember, I think the inmates went on strike, hunger strike. They said, we're not eating until we meet our lawyers. So now the officer who had refused me from talking to them is the one who called me. Meanwhile, now I was in Kampala saying, can you please talk to Danny Magic? Is he on phone? I said, no, don't talk to him on phone. You refused me to talk to him there. So you deal with them. Then, of course, eventually, Counsel Katana, I think, was traveling from Bushenyi. I told him, okay, you stop by Masaka Police and talk to these people. And 2 days later, they were arraigned in court. Ricardo knows this story very well. Arraigned in court. We spent the whole day in court. They were in court from 11 a.m. till 9 p.m. And I remember this was curfew time. Actually, they even tear gassed people, they beat up people, and we had to look for where to sleep. I was with Counsel Katana and John, manager John, and I think Nubian's wife. Trying to look for where to sleep. So all that. Then eventually, after 3 days of back and forth, 48 of the 101 were driven to Makindi and charged. That is the Eddie Mutwa Nubian group. After being released on bail, they were driven and charged with court martial. And of course, since then, it became a roller coaster. Court martials, abductions, going to high court. We've been to high court over 50 times, seeking orders of habeas corpus. That is for people who have been abducted.
You've mentioned many things that I'm gonna talk about. In fact, although you're not pulling them deep into how they came back. Let me just take you back before we even go further about the story. This is kind of personal to you and to other members of the legal team. We have seen the state becoming rough to the legal team, to the members in the law society, especially those that work with the opposition. We have seen members mysteriously die without us explaining how they've died. For example, we lost Counsel Anthony Wameli, and there have been allegations that maybe, you know what I mean when I say that. We are now seeing Honorable Shami Malende, who is a lawyer. She is in Aga Khan. She has been there for months, I think years now. And people think what I put in quotes. And now One of my professors at the university when I was studying my degree told me, Ashraf, thank you for not having fear become your own police. Meaning that he was okay with me standing up to fight for my country. I think you're doing the same thing. However, that kind of fear can never be taken out of our minds. Aren't you afraid now that we are seeing people dying under the regime in a way that we can't explain? People being bedridden for months and months. We don't even know if they will come out of that kind of state. People being arrested in court. We saw Aaron Kiza. So this kind of impunity, aren't you afraid, you being at the forefront of this fight?
Well, of course, I'm a human being, and I have fears. Certainly, like any other person, I have fears for my life and any other thing. But one, what strengthens me is one, my firm belief and faith in God. I strongly believe that many of the things that happen to us are outside our control.
Yep.
So there is a supernatural being whom we think that is our protector.
I'm a witness
Secondly,
to that.
yeah. Secondly, we there are my approach to law one of the things why I studied law was to see that I use law as a tool for change. One of my biggest disappointments in this country is actually the lawyers. Uganda Law Society has about 5,000 registered lawyers. You can't even find.
5,000.
Yes. You can't even find 20 or 50 doing human rights. You always talk about Nicholas Opio, Counsel Rakafuzi now is down, Aaron Kiza. Of course, I'm proud that there's a group of a few young people like Tumusime Kato and Wanda who are coming up, but they're not. The work is overwhelming. Those are not even more than 10 that I've mentioned. They're not even more than 10 out of over, even if you say 1,000. So one, my approach to law was how do you use law as a tool of social change. Secondly, I always believe that people, because everywhere where there's been bad governance, some of the people who have been at the forefront of that are lawyers. If you look at Zimbabwe, if you look at fighting apartheid, lawyers, journalists, civil society leaders. Of course, in Uganda, the issue is just different. The reason why even you see people like kids are being singled out is partly because they have been isolated. They are very few compared to the work that should be done. That's why you see him here, you see him here. So, am I afraid? Yes, I am. But then, what options do we have? Then, two, what is the reward of silence? There is no guarantee that if I'm quiet, I would be happier or I would be safer. I always tell people that there is no safer room in a burning house. 54 people, according to the government report, were shot by stray bullets in November 2020. Out of the 54, the government report says only 11 were rioters. So even if I was not doing this, I don't think I would be safer because I can be caught by a stray bullet in my office or driving in my car. So I think that one, it's important that you do what you can, and I also believe one of the things that fortify me is that I don't think I'm doing wrong. I think most of the human rights lawyers that I know, if you talk about Aaron Keys, Nicholas Opio, Ameli, Benjamin Katana, Wanda Samuel Tumusime Kato, name it, they are never motivated by money. It's never about money. It's always about the cause, the principle. So that is kind of our drive. And ultimately, yes, it carries risks. But Ashraf, you realize that anything, all people who have, if you fear risk so much, then you can't do anything. Okay.
You talked. There is one other thing that I really need the audience of Ghetto TV to understand. We always have cases in different parts of the country, like you mentioned earlier. Do we have enough members, especially now in NUP, which is underfunded, and all that is happening? Do we have enough resources? First of all, the lawyers, but also the resources that will make you guys go and look into cases in northern Uganda, eastern Uganda, western Uganda, or you feel like you're kind of overwhelmed?
Absolutely, we're overwhelmed, and of course, the resources cannot be enough. Both financial and human resources, they cannot be enough. You realize that there are always so many things happening that you need at least 10 lawyers well paid to be on standby. Now you realize that I think that is almost impossible because you have to have a budget of a very huge budget, and then you have to facilitate them. You have to now remember we have cases in Masaka. Sometimes you have cases. The other day we had a case in Jinja. You have cases all over the country, like you've rightly mentioned. Sometimes even in northern Uganda. So it means that you have to have money, because to have the human resources, at least you can hire, but you must have money, which is never enough. So you largely rely on the personnel. You find that, for instance, some of the people have been doing these cases. They're not doing it largely because of the money. They would do it even if they're not being paid. Many times it's more of a facilitation than a payment
Including
for
you,
legal fees.
right?
Of course, of course, of course, of course, of
Yeah.
course. Yes. So you find that it's problematic. Then sometimes you have people um, who may be politicians, and once in a while he comes to offers legal representation, but you can't rely on them that they will always be there to the conclusive conclusion of the case, to the logical conclusion of the case. So he may be here today, tomorrow he may not be there. So you need, even if the other political person is there or a lawyer who comes to because of the party, you need someone who is there to follow it up, because most of the work doesn't even happen in court. Most of the work happens in between. Go to visit the prisoners, go to take affidavits, go to see this, go and fix the case. So of course it's overwhelming, yes, but it's a sacrifice. We believe, some of us who do it, we believe that that's part of the sacrifice that we think we are contributing to this country, to the struggle and the liberation cause.
How are these kind of crimes, not even okay, crimes by the state, um keeping NUP back in doing its job of opposing the state? Because NUP has like many cases in courts, and we always see people like you, people like other councils, including the treasurer of the party,
Mm,
being much
mm,
kept
mm.
in court instead of thinking for the party, thinking for Ugandans. How has this kept you back in doing your work?
Of course, it's distracting, and it takes a whole part of your time. For instance, I know that our Secretary General spends a lot of time with us doing legal work, coordinating this and that, instead of maybe doing more other administrative work. He spends a lot of time in the legal work. Yes, partly because he's a lawyer, but also because it's demanding. Yeah, so many times he's calling, asking about the case, the people of cheated, and those are the calls also he fields. He fields calls from inmates, he fields calls from their relatives, he fields calls from us talking about this and that. So I know that he spends a lot of time because we engage a lot. Of course, even you like you rightly mentioned, the treasurer is a de facto part of the legal team. So it is distracting. It is distracting, but then again, part of that legal work is also directly related to the party activities. For instance, if the party is having these tours, these mobilization tours, police now has a habit. When we write to them, they first engage us in a meeting. We talk. The legal team is invited, and for purposes of the tour, then after the tour they say, okay, you come back. So you realize that some of these activities also have a bearing on the legal work. So it's certainly distracting. It has slowed down. It has distracted us from other important things, and then kept us on narrow but crucial matters. For instance, many people think that having 18 missing persons shouldn't be an issue. But for me, I think it's already can look narrow, but it's crucial. It's critical. Why should one
Very.
Ugandan be missing? So why should one Uganda be missing? So remember that the missing person story has been there since 2021. That we have been to all forums, we've been to Marriage Commission, we've been to Parliament, we've been to court, now in Court of Appeal. So you can imagine the kind of work and the distraction and time that goes in between. That is just one case. Then you have the case of the abductions that have been ongoing, the drone things. Today they abducted this one, they have abducted this one. So it is certainly distracting.
You talked about the habeas corpus applications that you always file. Now, here's my question, Counsel. The way the judicial system deals with these applications, many times they don't even reply to you. Sometimes they take length times to come back to you, and other times they just bring out the person who has been abducted and drop them somewhere on a river, somewhere in the trench, without even getting back to you. One, are we wasting time? Is the legal team wasting time in finding these applications? But also, do they really help?
Actually, they do help because in almost 95% of the cases we filed them, the people have been released as a result of those filings.
Oh,
I remember, yes, I remember there are even people who come to mind. I remember like the issue, there is a case of a Chengera counselor, I forget his name. He was abducted, I think, he was coming from the parted quarters in January last year. He was abducted. That was the day when 26th January when they screened the documentary movie for the president was screened at the headquarters. So he was coming from there and was abducted. He was held until we had to go to court. People like Geno Gaza, our good friend, we had to first go to court and then they produced him. People like Jamshid Kavuma. I remember he was missing for over a month until we went to court. So what happens when we serve them and when the court fixes that matter, the day is supposed to be, the habeas corpus application is supposed to be heard. That's when they take him to either court or release him, or a day before. So the more, if you don't file, they can even take, there are some cases where they even take 3 months without releasing someone until you file. Then their lawyers put them on some sort of pressure, then they either release the person. So yes, for purposes of securing the person's immediate freedom, they do help. The only problem is one, they should have continued with, the court should have continued with holding these people who have been holding this person incommunicado responsible. But the moment the person is arraigned, usually people say, okay, that is okay. Now the person has been found. Yet actually you're supposed to explain where the person has been held.
Sometimes also, sometimes they just drop this person somewhere without answering any question, and the court doesn't even mind.
Yes, so the failure is one, by courts not going that extra step. But then secondly, now even some courts are fixing them very belatedly. I remember when we filed Edim Dweza habeas corpus before he was arraigned in court had fixed it for two weeks later. Because habeas corpus was supposed to be talking about someone's life, that someone's life is on the line. You can't even, it's supposed to be an immediate ex parte application. So one, the two failures are those issues with the courts, but in as far as they help in getting someone's immediate freedom, released from that unlawful custody, they by and large, they have helped a lot.
So what you've talked about puts us on a double-edged sword. In which way? So the habeas corpus applications are good in a way that they force these people to bring people back, either take them to court or drop them somewhere. But again, should we now clap and thank the courts, the judicial system, that it is doing its work, or we thank you, the legal team, that you're trying to do your work? Who should we thank, and where should we put our trust and hope? Because more abductions are going to come up.
Of course, the legal team does its work best when courts are functioning well, and the legal team does some of those orders from courts. It shouldn't be even just a matter of thanking, but acknowledging. But because in any case, courts that's their duty. Even for the lawyer, that's their obligation as well. If you undertake to instructions from a client or to help a client, you do it to the best of your abilities. So it's not so much a matter of appreciation, but it's a matter of seeing where there are gaps to strengthen. My gut feeling though is that the courts are not strengthening that, because if they were strengthening, we would see a reduction. We would see a reduction in those abductions. We would see stronger orders from courts. We would see stronger orders from courts ordering that some of these people should be where have you been held, giving orders to the officers who have been holding them in incommunicado detention, such that they are restrained from doing such a thing again.
And my other question to you, Counsel, is that we're still talking about habeas corpus applications. So you are kind of explaining that they are really hoping, and you talked about the gaps. What are some of those gaps that we need to think about and see that the state must fix, because they think the judiciary is there and it's doing its work, yet it's not doing its work?
You bring an order, an application of habeas corpus when you are saying so and so is held. We believe is in the hands of government, but we don't know why he's being held. So court has a duty to task government to explain why Mr. Ashraf Kassi is being held. What government does is, because many times we go to court after the person has been held for a longer time, maybe sometimes even a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So I was saying that we usually go to court after a person has been in detention, sometimes for a month, sometimes for 3 weeks, 2 weeks. So it's not enough for government to just come and say, now the person is here. Yet you've not explained why you've held him for a month. So courts should be taking an extra step to say, okay, you've produced him. Why has he been in detention? And such that you send out punitive and a message that this habit should not stop. But
why has he been in detention? Why has he or she been tortured, as he or she alleges?
And where has he been? And for what reason? So the current trend of just saying, it's akin to Ashraf, me stealing your money, and you look for me after 2 months, then I say, okay, your money is here. It's not enough to just return the money. I should be given a stronger message that don't steal again. Why have you been deprived me of my money for 2 months? So that's the same thing, that it's not just enough to say now the person is here. Why has he been held? Because this person's liberty has been deprived unconstitutionally for a month. So that's why we're saying that there's that gap, that court's not going an extra mile to put government to task, and that's one of the reasons why these abductions have continued.
Let us now talk about bails and also the delays and the backlog in the judicial system. How is this affecting your work as the lawyers now, especially you people in the opposition? Because sometimes you apply for bail for some of the people that have been either arrested or abducted and then placed in court for hearing, but years and years go on without these people being prosecuted, yet they are being kept in prisons. Aren't you guys afraid of doing the work that is never getting to the end, either winning or them being found guilty and imprisoned?
Actually, one of our biggest disappointments now is the delays in the justice system and the unreasonable delays, so to speak. I can give some examples which are live. You know, our colleagues who were in the court martial, they are still in Machete Group,
Yeah,
Kalanzi,
yeah,
Kato, they are still in Chitalia. We applied for bail, but even Bobby Young, we
yeah.
applied for bail, I think sometime in, the court ruling came out in January, 31st January. We applied for bail sometime in March or early April. Their bail applications have not been fixed for hearing. Only Machete's was fixed for hearing. It was heard on 3 occasions when the ruling was supposed to be made. The ruling has not been ready. For the others, even a hearing has not been granted. Even Dr. Kiza Besigye and Owejobi Dutere, they are now facing the same fate. Their bail application has refused to be granted. I was talking to one of his lawyers last Friday. It's the same fate. Yet, we have the constitutional bail guidelines which say that a bail application should be heard and disposed of within 30 days after filing. Now, these people have taken almost 3 months after filing. Their bail applications are not even heard, leave alone being disposed of. We have our comrades in Masaka, Achileo, Gaddafi, and Smart.
Kivumbi, Smart,
Yes.
Achileo, Gaddafi.
Eddie, the first group of the first trial, we applied for bail before even Eddie was arrested. Bail has not been fixed for hearing.
Was abducted.
Yes, Eddie has 2 applications pending before the High Court of Masaka, including one on human rights enforcement, which talks about his torture and how his torture should be declared a nullity. It has not even been heard. So it is frustrating. You have people who have been tortured, people who have been abducted, badly beaten. Many of these people, they have opened up civil cases. Swabla opened up a civil case. It has never been heard. There's our friend Kalioa Alex opened up a civil case. It has never been heard. Masereka's case took over 3 years to be disposed of. You look at a person like Honorable Zake, whose case was heard and disposed
Yeah.
of. He has not been paid. So it's frustrating. It's frustrating. But then again, I always tell people that for us to do what is within our control, at least filing these cases within our control. Hearing it may not be in our control, but let's do what we have to do, and then we do the demanding. Because I don't. The opposite would be wrong. Would be to sit down and lament and do nothing. So let us do what we can, and then ultimately they'll get justice one or the other.
Aren't you guys always afraid when these people are finally given bails, but with high costs of sureties? Do you call them sureties? The money
The,
that you're supposed to pay before
the
someone
bail
is
term.
bailed.
The bail terms.
Yeah, the bail terms. Sorry for
Mm.
that. Aren't you guys sometimes afraid that some of these people, especially those that come from the up country, from rural areas that don't have money, then he or she's given a bail that costs like 2 million, 3 million, sometimes 10 million Ugandan shillings? How do you handle this? And do you think it also keeps us back in doing our work?
Of course, many times for some of those people, the party chips in. The party has had to pay money for such kind of people, activists, comrades who can't meet those bail terms. Some of them, their families, a few, their families can chip in here and there, and the party makes another contribution. So it's draining, it's straining, especially given that bail should not be seen as a punishment. Bail, the person is still presumed to be innocent. But those are some of the problems that come along this journey of fighting for justice.
And do you think sometimes you feel like you can't continue with this, or you say that there's no other option, like you said earlier?
uh, about a couple of days ago, I was having lunch with Benjamin Katana and Aaron Kiza. And we are, of course, many times we have these lunches to exchange notes and all. And we're saying that we find ourselves like people who are stranded in the middle of a river or in the middle of a lake. the only option you have is to swim forward and reach the other end. Giving up is not an option, because I remember, for instance, when the youthful activists organized the walk to Parliament last year in June and July, some of them were hesitant to, for instance, use our legal services as who are aligned to NUP, because they are saying, we don't want people to think that we are NUP supported. So we want to use a lawyer who is non-aligned, like Aaron Keys. I said, well, thank God, because in any case, I was supposed to go on my annual leave around that time to take a break of about a week, the week when they were supposed to be beginning. So we are following up a case of a comrade, of our comrades in court martial. I remember still I was with Counsel, and I work with him a lot. In any case, he's my workmate. So we had gone to court martial on a Monday to follow up that case. We had a meeting with the court martial officials over our case. In fact, I told Counsel that because I'm going on leave, I will even dress in jeans, such that after this meeting I just go home. I don't walk to office. When we were in Makindye, those people started protesting, and then by the time we finished our meeting, I saw on Twitter people were tagging me: Counsel Musisi, Counsel Katana, Counsel Nicholas Opio, Aaron Kiza, where are you? Activists arrested at Ginger Road. Wow. So I told Counsel Katana that, okay, now we're out of market, let's pass by Ginger Road. And then the rest is history. We found ourselves entangled into those whole cases. From Ginger Road, we went to CPS, from CPS to Uganda Road Court, and the rest is history. So, yes, we don't, it would be easier to say that let's give up, but then that doesn't seem like an option, because it seems we are conscripted. It seems we are conscripted. It seems we are conscripted, but then again, we don't regret it, because we believe it's a contribution to the bigger cause in the struggle.
Let us now drive it back to Chila municipality. What are some of the things that people need that side, that the person you want to take out of that seat hasn't ever thought of, has never done, and yet when I see him talking, it looks like he has done everything?
Ashraf, I don't subscribe to the notion that I want to take out anyone. The social contract or the mandate that is given to any leader in the Ugandan political system is 5 years. So the mandate was given. I don't want to interrupt with it. He will serve his term, and then him or any other person is free to seek a mandate for the extra 5 years. What I also don't want to subscribe to is the NRM style notion that if a person is average, above average, or good, that person should be in a position for life. Because it reminds me of when NRM amended the Constitution in 2005. I remember the arguments of Mr. Mama and Babas on the floor of Parliament saying, Mr. Museveni is very good, we can't afford to lose him. Now, the same people, I think that syndrome has caught up some people in opposition, saying that if Ashraf is very good, he should never go. Are they telling me that, for instance, since you've talked about Chira, that Kalega Anjuba, who in 2011 chose not to stand and introduced a political novice, who is now a senior legislator, that he wasn't good? Are they telling me that Winnie Kiza was not good to choose not to stand? So for me, I don't subscribe to that notion that if you are good, in any case, let us look at all the good legislators of the past who are still in Parliament. The Geoffrey Kanyas, the Abdul Katuntus, the Elijah Coopers, they were firebrands in Parliament. Let us examine whether they are better today or they were better then. Because that Parliament at least has a history that people only get worse with the longevity. They don't get better.
Just
that
like
is
their
standard.
president.
You can't point me to any member of Parliament who after his fourth term is better than he was in the first term. Not a single one.
Wow.
And it's just a natural rule of life. There is no person who becomes better by long stay in a place for ages. It's just the natural rule of life. Actually, in Uganda today, where you have this benevolent patron at the top who is always dangling goodies to opposition people, many of them are actually, the longer they stay, the easier they fall prey to the benevolent dictator. That is why, even if you examine many of the 3-term, 4-term, 5-term people, you'll find that their effectiveness, their efficacy is in the past. It's not in the second. So when you ask about Chira municipality, one, I believe that the mandate of the people is strictly for 5 years. Secondly, I'll be seeking their mandate because I want to bring more effective leadership. I know the roles, the duties of the constitutional duties of a member of parliament. I know them very well, given my legal background. But then again, I also believe that as a leader, any type of leader, especially in our communities, you are also a leader, a community leader. Whether you're a mayor, whether you're a councillor, whether you're an MP, whether you're a district chair, you're also a community leader. That is why you find even our MPs dealing with things like buying ambulances, which ordinarily is not a role of a member of parliament, but because you're a community leader, people need basic social services. So I also think that on the part of what are the communal needs that the people need, there's stronger need for an improvement, because that has been lacking, on top of the other national issues. So I believe I'm bringing a fresher voice. I believe I'm building onto the works of others, and I believe that I'm bringing more energy. Yes.
And so, do you want to mean, if I understand you well, that this gentleman has done more good than the bad, but his longevity needs to be cut short?
Well, I'm not comparing myself to him. Neither am I analyzing his good or bad.
Neither do I compare you to him. But I'm just trying to see that one, he was. Listen, Counsel, kindly listen to me. This gentleman was a journalist who cut short his work as a media person to come and serve in the parliament. Now we are seeing another person who has been serving the entire country. He is a lawyer, and the party and all other Ugandans are benefiting from his services, but is now going to Chila municipality, which is a good thing because we're going to serve Ugandans, that side too. But do you think he has done better than him being a journalist doing more work nationwide than him being in parliament? The same thing is going to happen to you as long as you go to parliament. You're going to have more time in parliament than more time to the entire country that you've been giving to all Ugandans.
I look at parliament as a stronger voice to do what you've been doing. I know I've had debate with colleagues, peers. I remember my brother Nicholas Opio was one of the people who was urging me not to join elective politics, because we were saying, you've been playing a better role here than you can play there. That house is rotten. I remember other senior lawyers like Philip Karugaba have told me the same thing, because of the sentiments that are associated with politicians. However, I also think that it depends on how you approach leadership. You can, just like, for instance, let me use the example of journalism or the law that you've been talking about. There are many people who use their law career to make money for personal ends. Then there are those who use it, part of it to make money, but part of it also to serve society. Just like journalism, there are those who have gone into the comfort zone of saying no, refrain from what can hurt me, and then there are those who go out and say, let me point out this for the sake of why I am a journalist in the first place. So I look at parliament as a higher voice, giving you a pedestal to do what you've been doing, but at a higher level, because you have a mandate. But then again, like I've told you, that because you're a leader, I also look at parliament as giving you a chance to cause some bit of transformation, because leaders should be dealers in hope, should be dealers in solutions. So I look at any leadership position as giving you that pedestal to, one, provide hope, to the many challenges that our people face, but then again, try to be part of the solutions.
The verdict. My name is Ashraf Kassirie. We are coming back shortly after some adverts, and stay tuned to Ghetto TV. Do you want to work on something before we proceed?
No, just a second. Pharrell, this money is for what? Okay, all right. Set.
Okay, we'll be back from the adverts, and my name is Ashraf Kassirie. We are concluding with Counsel George Musisi, the MP aspirant for Chila municipality under NUP. He is seeking the flag. So don't say that he's the flag bearer yet, but I'm sure the party trusts him. He has been doing great work that side, and I know he'll get there. And I hope he also gets to the other level and goes to parliament to represent not only Chila people, but Ugandans at large. Counsel, I just have another personal question. Who is Counsel George Musisi?
Well, he have many hats, but one, I'm a Christian, I'm a Ugandan, I'm a father, I'm a very strong, committed person to the values of humanity. I'm a strong believer in social justice.
That point where you've said, where, of course, personally, I know the places where you've served in the past, but can you help our audience get to know who is this George Musisi, the counsel I'm talking about?
Well, I'm also Rotarian. I'm a Rotarian from the Rotary Club of Bulindo in Chira. I'm actually the charter president, its first president. I am when I finished school, I went into human rights practice. I worked with the Foundation for Human Rights Initiative, an organization headed by Dr. Livingston Sewanyana, for a couple of years until I think 2017, 1st January, when myself and 4 other colleagues formed a private law firm. Partners, of course, one of them is Benjamin Katana, whom people know very well. The other 2 are outside this kind of work. And that the human rights passion drove me. At first, I was a human rights activist without any political alignment, but I was always passionate about human rights. I've not started. But many people, when they see us, they think that they're doing it for politics. I remember in 2016, we were part of the group of lawyers together with Nicholas Opio, Elias Lukwago. We tried to prosecute Kale Kaihura for torture at Makindi. And until that man of Border 2010 tried to beat us at Makindi. Remember that story, Ashraf? Mr. Chitata mobilized goons to beat us at Makindi Magistrates Court. So that was not politics. It was about a belief in the cause. So 2017, of course, People Power is birthed. We've just founded PACE. We meet. We had a meeting with President Robert Chagulanyi. He interested us in offering legal support to the People Power movement, but also in the cause of the People Power. And of course, like they said, the rest is history. For the bigger part of it, I was strictly offering legal services. Many times, you realize that the problem is a political one. That is why even for people like Aaron Kaiser, who is a close friend, and I don't know his political affiliation, he's not at least not known to me. But of course, people are so keen to say he's an opposition lawyer because you are dealing with things, you're dealing with violations by the state. And when you speak out strongly, they say, oh no, you're opposition. So dealing with cases of activists gave me a chance to see firsthand the violations, firsthand the tears of widows, the tears of mothers looking for their children, the tears of wives looking for their husbands. And I knew that the problem is political. Of course, I was around when people were seeking elective offices under NOP in 2020. I deliberately didn't take any stand. I remember I was, after the election management committee, there was an appellate body which would handle grievances from any disputes that have arisen from the if a person was dissatisfied with the giving of the card and so on and so forth. So I was on that committee, which was above the review for the election management committee. I was glad Ugandans trusted NUP with the mandate. We voted overwhelmingly. Then I also saw a gap after when people were exercising their mandate. I saw that there was a need to beef up our team, especially on the legislative end, as we seek the bigger mandate. There is this talk by many people that, you people are looking for positions, you're not removing the dictator. I've seen it on social media. Yeah. I think that talk is, why do you go for opposition constituencies? I think that talk is either out of ignorance or out of selfishness. Because I always ask people, NUP won 59, 57 MP seats. Should we also say that where NUP won, these constituencies should be ring-fenced and no any other political party should contest here because they are NUP? Because multipartyism is, and then two, for instance, let me use an example because they have said it on many of my points. Well, why do you, I say, if I didn't contest, does it mean that the incumbent is going to be announced? Still, you have to go back to the people. It's the people give the mandate. So even if I don't run, there may be another person from another party altogether. But then it's not automatic that if a person is, otherwise you fall into exactly the trap I said, that who gives the mandate? It's the people. It's not NUP or me. So you subject all choices to the people. That's what contestation means. Otherwise, how do you crown someone to say, okay, that is our MP for life? So I saw a gap. I felt the need to beef up our legal team, our political team,
and you voluntarily came to.
Yes, and I think yes. So it's not putting one aside, because the cause is the same. The cause is the same, and people should not mistake to think that when you're removing the dictator, you only fight for one seat in the country. That is foolhardy. So I think I'm like I've said, some bit of my life has been so public, the works that we've been doing, and we believe that I believe in a better Uganda. I dream of a better Uganda for our children and even for us to enjoy. One of the problems we see right now is the seeming to live in two Ugandas, seeming to say Uganda which doesn't work for some people, and that is one of the challenges we're having.
My final question to you, Counsel, I hope we shall have a chance to again host you on other issues, because many things are going to happen, especially
Absolutely.
this year as we head to 2026. We pray that people are not killed as much as they wish to do, because Museveni wishes to do that, to punish us, to make us have that fear in us. But now the final question is, we saw the president, I call him the president, Bobby Wine, Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, in your constituency in Bulindo, and he almost lost his leg. What happened? What happened that very day? What happened
here.
that day?
He was seated right here. He had a meal.
Yeah, take us back. Take us through what happened on that day.
Well, the president confided in me that he wanted to visit me to appreciate me for the work. In fact, the speech he gave here, he said that we never got a chance to appreciate Wameri. We hope we'll get a chance, because he said there are three people who have really worked tirelessly: myself, Counsel Katana, and Counsel Wameri. He said, I hope we get a chance to appreciate Counsel Katana. We're here to appreciate you. It was meant to be a purely private visit. In fact, even my brothers, even my neighbors never got, because they told me, no, don't invite any people. The only people you should invite should be the mayor, the local mayor, who is NUP, and the area woman MP, Honorable Ethel. And actually, they can testify that I called them that day. I called them that morning that, you know what, the president is going to pass by. Please join us at around 3 for a cup of tea. So it was meant to be a private visit. When the team of who are riding on borders went through, because even if there was even no tent. If you notice, there was no tent. Even my next door neighbors weren't aware, because it was supposed to be a closed door event. However, when the team which leads him went through the road, I think police got to know, and I received a call from I think the DPC, not the DPC, the OC of Chira Police Station, and he told me, you have a function. I said, no, I don't have a function. And so, but you're a lawyer, you know the law. I said, what? I know the law. Does the law forbid receiving of visitors? I told him that actually you can check, as long as you don't come in. Even my next door neighbor is not inconvenienced, because everyone can enter the gate without even anyone parking outside. You don't even have, no one is inconvenienced in any way. Then he said, oh, okay, but keep it brief. I said, but there's no law which regulates how long visitors should visit.
Keep it brief.
And in the course of the visit, because the visit I think lasted about 2 hours, he kept on calling me until I stopped picking his calls, because he kept on asking, why isn't the visit ending? Why? I told him, but until I kept on, because they're becoming irritating. So the visit ended successfully. We had a brief, a few speeches, which lasted about 40 minutes in total. He entered the house. He took a cup of tea. We were with my brother Alex Weiss, who was around. I think he was the only, and then, like I told you, the mayor and the area MP and a few leaders, councillors who are NUP aligned in the area. So the visit ended. I told you that in total it was about 2 hours, and he bid me farewell and they set off. Still, like I mentioned, now these police, from my road to the main home, from the main road to my home, it's about 300 meters. Now these gentlemen had put up a police blockade before the main road, on the junction which leads to the main road, in other words, stopping people from accessing the main road. Up to now, I still think of, I can't fathom the foolhardiness of this, because why do you block someone who is leaving? I always ask, did they want him to come back and stay here? Because the person has ended and is leaving. And so about 3 minutes after they had left, I had tear gas being, the distance was not so long, so I could hear tear gas canisters, the sound of canisters being, and bullets. So I thought that maybe police had, it was just tear gassing them, but I couldn't imagine that they could be blocked from going. And then shortly after, I got a call from Eddie Mutwe. Eddie told me that, hey, the president has been shot. So I had, I couldn't drive my car because it's well known. I knew that maybe I would be a target. So I had to get a jump on a border and went there. It was like a distance of about 400 meters. Certainly, I found them. We go to the nearby health center. They gave the minimum first aid. And of course, I got to know what had transpired, that they had blocked, they had started shooting and beating people, like you later saw in the videos. And then the president was trying to come out to ask the man who was beating that why we were arresting these people. So there was no procession. There was no blockage of the road. If anything, the police blocked the road. There was no confrontation whatsoever. It was state-inspired provocation.
Did the OC who had been earlier on calling your phone, becoming your friend, like calling you all the time, did he ever explain to you why they then came and attacked your guests?
Actually, no. I didn't even have I didn't call him again. Neither did he call me. I've bumped into him a couple of times at police because they have arrested a number of people since then, even including Noah Muto was at that police station. Of course, when he sees me, I think because of that incident, he tries to. We've never talked about it. Neither have we ever had any other conversation in that aspect.
Oh. One thing that I'll mention last, such things are going to happen as we head to 2026 elections. Are you ready for this? Because you're going into campaigns and many other people. One, you are a lawyer. They might need your services somewhere, but are you ready for this?
What choice do I have, Ashraf? Being
Again,
ready is not an option. If I was not ready, what option do I have? I'm ready. Mentally, I'm ready. Of course, sometimes you can't be ready for everything because they keep on. Sometimes they're overwhelming, and like I told you, we're all human. But like I told you, sometimes going forward is the only option you have.
thank you so much, Counsel George Musisi. It has been a
Thank
great
you, Ashton.
conversation, and I pray that you give us some more time in the near future to talk
Anytime,
about
I'll
many
be
other
here.
things. And
Inshallah.
God bless you, sir. Thank you so
Amen.
much.
God bless. Take
The
care and
verdict on
greetings.
Ghetto TV. See you then.